The desperate Plath, great assembly hall of Station Nexus, had witnessed many historic moments in galactic history, but never had it held such a gathering of pure desperation. Representatives from 43 different species floated, stood, or coiled in their designated areas, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of panic that the universal translators struggled to process. The massive holographic display at the center showed what remained of the Outer Rim territories, and the sight was enough to make even the most hardened military commanders feel their courage drain away. Where once thriving colonies had dotted the star maps, now only empty space remained. Not destroyed space, not ruined planets, but literally nothing. The Devourers had passed through these systems like a cosmic plague, consuming everything in their path. Stars, planets, asteroids, even the very space dust had vanished, leaving behind regions of absolute void that hurt to look at. Ambassador Kylux of the Zentari delegation stood at the central podium, his 6 arms trembling as he manipulated the holographic controls. His species was known throughout the galaxy for their diplomatic skills and calm demeanor, but today his normally silvery skin had turned a pale blue with fear. The images he displayed showed the final transmissions from the lost colonies, desperate. Messages cut short as entire worlds simply ceased to exist. "Fellow beings," Kylux began, his melodic voice carrying across the hall through the translation network. "We stand at the precipice of galactic extinction. In the past 8 months, we have lost 173 inhabited systems to the entities we call the Devourers. Our combined fleets have engaged them 17 times. 0 victories, 0 survivors from direct contact. General Thane of the Corvani war clans shifted his massive frame, the battle-scarred reptilian's yellow eyes fixed on the display. His people had fought in every major galactic conflict for the past millennium, and his own scales bore the marks of countless battles. But what he saw in these recordings was beyond warfare. It was annihilation on a scale that defied comprehension. The recordings show they adapt to every weapon we use, Thane growled, his translator struggling with the subsonic rumbles of his native language. Plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, even the Vex's reality disruptors. Nothing affects them. They absorb our attacks and somehow become stronger. My fleet lost 3 dreadnoughts in the Kepler engagement. The creatures consumed them completely. Metal, energy, even the quantum signatures. A soft chiming sound drew attention to the ethereal delegation. Elder Vess, one of the few remaining members of the galaxy's oldest known species, materialized more solidly than usual. The ethereals rarely took physical form, preferring to exist as pure energy, but the current crisis had forced them to participate more directly in galactic affairs. "We have searched the cosmic memory," Vess spoke, her voice like wind through crystal formations. "These entities are not from our reality. They come from the spaces between spaces, where different physical laws apply. Our weapons, our defenses, even our understanding of existence itself is meaningless to them. They are not just destroying us, they are rewriting the fundamental nature of matter itself wherever they pass." The hall erupted in panicked discussions. Species that had been enemies for generations found themselves agreeing on their shared doom. The mathematical projections were clear. At their current rate of expansion, the Devourers would reach the core worlds within 6 months. Every major population center in the galaxy would be consumed. It was then that Kylux spoke the words that would change everything. "There is one option we have not considered," he said, his voice cutting through the chaos. The hall gradually fell, silent. "We could contact the humans. The silence that followed was profound and uncomfortable. Every being in the assembly knew about humans, though few had direct contact with them. They were the newest species to achieve interstellar travel, having only developed faster-than-light capability 50 years ago. Their home system, which they called Sol, was considered a backwater region at the galaxy's edge. But humans were different from other species in ways that made the galactic community nervous. They came from what xenobiologists classified as a death world, a planet so hostile that most galactic species couldn't survive there for more than minutes. Earth's gravity was crushing, its weather was violent, its native life forms were aggressive, and even its plant life was often toxic. Yet humans had not only survived, but had conquered their entire planet and turned it into a thriving world. General Thane was the first to break the silence. "Humans are primitives," he snarled. "They have barely mastered basic space travel. What could they possibly do against threats that have defeated our most advanced fleets?" Perhaps, Kylox replied carefully, "that is exactly why we should ask them. Our advanced technology has failed. Our sophisticated weapons are useless. Maybe we need a different approach entirely." Elder Vess shimmered with what might have been agreement. The humans have a reputation for solving problems in ways that other species consider impossible or insane. Their military history shows a pattern of victory through methods that seem to defy logic. Dr. Nexon of the Scientific Collective pulled up historical data on the main display. The insectoid scientist's compound eyes reflected the information. As he analyzed it aloud, human military records show they have never lost a war they were fully committed to winning. The raider conflicts, the colony rebellions, the mining wars, in every case, they achieved total victory despite being outnumbered or outgunned. "Because they cheat," General Thane spat. "Humans don't follow the civilized rules of warfare. They use tactics that no honorable species would consider. And right now," Kylox said quietly, "that might be exactly what we need." The debate continued. For hours, some species argued that humans were too dangerous, too unpredictable. Others pointed out that they had little choice, conventional approaches had failed completely. The Devourers showed no interest in communication, no desire for territory or resources. They simply consumed everything and moved on. Finally, the vote was called. It was closer than expected, but desperation won over pride. The measure passed. By a margin of 3 votes, a message would be sent to Earth, requesting human assistance in exchange for whatever terms they demanded. The fastest courier ship in the galaxy was prepared for the journey to human space. Captain Zorak, a veteran of the diplomatic corps, was chosen to deliver the message personally. As he prepared for departure, Kylox handed him the formal communication that had been crafted by the Assembly's best diplomatic minds. The message was simple and honest. To the government of Earth, the Galactic Union faces extinction. An enemy beyond our understanding is consuming entire star systems. Our fleets have failed. Our weapons are useless. We request your assistance in exchange for any terms you deem acceptable. Time is critical. Billions of lives hang in the balance. 3 days later, Captain Zorak returned with humanity's response. The message was delivered by a human named Captain Martinez, whose scarred face and mechanical left arm suggested extensive combat experience. He appeared on the Assembly's main screen wearing a simple military uniform that somehow managed to look more intimidating than the elaborate ceremonial armor of the Galactic Warriors. "The United Earth Defense Force has reviewed your request," Martinez said in the direct manner typical of humans. "We're willing to help, but our terms are non-negotiable. First, complete operational command of all military assets in the affected regions. Second, territorial rights to any systems we clear of hostile forces. Third, full access to your technological databases and manufacturing capabilities. Fourth, permanent observer status in all future galactic political decisions. The terms were shocking. Humans were essentially demanding to become a major galactic power overnight, with rights and privileges that other species had taken millennia to earn. General Thane rose to protest, but Kylox cut him off. "Captain Martinez," Kylox said, "your terms are ... extensive. May we ask what you're offering in return?" Martinez smiled, and there was something in that expression that made every predator species in the assembly recognize a fellow apex hunter. "We're offering to solve your problem permanently. No half measures, no temporary solutions. When we're done, the Devourer threat will be eliminated completely." "That's impossible," Dr. Nexin interjected. "These entities are beyond physical destruction. They exist partially outside normal space-time." "Doctor," Martinez replied, "humans specialize in doing the impossible. We'll have our first response. Fleet in your space within 2 weeks. I suggest you evacuate all civilian populations from the combat zones. Our methods tend to have significant side effects." The transmission ended before anyone could ask what he meant by side effects. The vote to accept human terms was even closer than the first, passing by a single vote. As the assembly dissolved into worried discussions, Elder Vess approached. "Kylix, privately, you realize what you've done," she said, her energy form pulsing with concern. "Humans are not saviors. They are survivors. And survivors do whatever it takes to ensure their own continued existence." Kylox looked at the star map, showing the advancing Devourers. Red markers indicated consumed systems, and yellow projections showed their expected path toward the galactic core. In 6 months, everything they had built would be gone. "Perhaps," he replied, "but at least now we have a chance. And if the humans prove to be a problem later, at least there will be a later to worry about." Neither of them spoke the thought that hung in the air between them. They had just invited the galaxy's most dangerous predators to hunt in their space. The question wasn't whether humans could stop the Devourers. The question was what would happen to the galaxy once they did. In the depths of space, automated probes launched from hidden human installations began mapping the affected regions with sensors that operated on principles the galactic community didn't understand. The United Earth Defense Force had been preparing for this moment for decades, waiting for the right opportunity to establish humanity's place in the cosmic order. The Devourers had provided that opportunity. Soon, they would learn why humans had never lost a war they were determined to win. The Reckoning, 2 weeks after the Galactic Union's desperate plea. The combined alien fleets gathered at the edge of the Terminus sector, the last inhabited system. Before the Devour-consumed void, Admiral Kylox had transferred his flag to the massive Zentari dreadnought Harmony, its pristine white hull gleaming against the backdrop of distant stars. Around him, nearly 3,000 ships from 43 different species waited in carefully organized formations, their crews nervous and uncertain. The sight should have been inspiring, the greatest armada in galactic history assembled to defend their civilization. Instead, it felt like a funeral procession. Every commander knew they were witnessing the end of an era. Either the humans would somehow succeed where all others had failed, or they would simply add their ships to the growing list of vessels consumed by the unstoppable enemy. Any sign of the human fleet? General Thane asked from his position on the bridge of the Corvani battlecruiser War's Edge, His reptilian features were more pronounced when he was stressed, and right now his scales had taken on the dark coloration that preceded combat. "Negative, General," reported the sensor operator, a young Centauri named Kess. "Our deep space arrays show nothing. Either they're not coming, or they're using technology we can't detect." Suddenly, reality seemed to hiccup. Space itself appeared, to fold inward at dozens of points simultaneously, and then the human fleet materialized out of nothing. There was no transition, no gradual appearance, one moment empty space, the next moment filled with ships that defied every principle of known engineering. That the human vessels looked wrong, while alien ships were built according to logical principles of physics and aesthetics. These craft appeared to have been designed by minds that understood different rules entirely. They were angular and asymmetrical, their hulls seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange energy patterns danced across their surfaces like living circuits, pulsing with colors that didn't quite fit within the visible spectrum. At the center of the formation sat the largest warship anyone had ever seen. The UES Prometheus was 1.5 kilometers long, but it moved through space with the fluid grace of a living creature. Its hull shifted and flowed like metallic liquid, occasionally opening to reveal weapon systems that quickly sealed themselves again. "By the void," whispered Dr. Nexon from his science vessel. "Their energy readings are impossible. That flagship is generating more power than our entire fleet combined." Admiral Sarah Chen materialized as a hologram on every alien bridge simultaneously. She was a compact woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes that held the cold calculation of someone who had made the hard decisions required by command. Behind her, the human command center looked more like a laboratory than a traditional bridge, filled with displays showing incomprehensible data streams. "Allied fleet commanders," Chen began, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed instantly. "I am Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. Before we engage the hostile entities, there are protocols you must follow for your own survival." She paused, allowing her words to be translated into the various alien languages. "First, all non-human vessels will maintain a minimum distance of 100,000 kilometers from our ships during combat operations. Second, under no circumstances will you enter any region we designate as a cleansing zone. Third, any ship experiencing system failures will be handled exclusively by human recovery teams." General Thane's image appeared on the communication grid. "Admiral Chen, with respect, those distances are enormous for space combat. How do you expect us to provide support?" Chen's smile was sharp as a blade. "General, you're not here to provide support. You're here to observe and learn. The Galactic Union requested our help to eliminate the Devourer threat. We intend to do exactly that." Before anyone could respond, alarm klaxons began wailing across the alien fleet. The long-range sensors had detected something that made their blood run cold, the distinctive signature of approaching Devourers. "Contact, multiple contacts," shouted Kess from the sensor station. "Devourer formation, bearing 047 Mark 12, estimated. Arrival in 40 minutes. The tactical display updated to show what was approaching. 7 massive entities, each one the size of a moon, moved through space with purpose and malevolent intelligence. They had no visible means of propulsion, simply bending space around themselves to achieve impossible speeds. As they traveled, they left behind traces of absolute emptiness regions where the normal quantum foam of space had been consumed. All alien vessels "Fall back to the secondary perimeter immediately," Admiral Chen commanded. "Human fleet, initiate Protocol 7. What happened next would be discussed in galactic military academies for centuries to come. The human ships began to change. Their hulls flowed like liquid, reconfiguring themselves into new shapes. Weapon systems emerged from impossible angles, and the space around each vessel began to distort visibly. Dr. Nexon's instruments went haywire as he tried to analyze what he was seeing. "The readings make no sense," he transmitted to the fleet. "They're manipulating fundamental forces that shouldn't be controllable. It's like they're rewriting the laws of physics in real time." The US Prometheus underwent the most dramatic transformation. Its hull opened like a flower, revealing a core that hurt to look at directly. Energy patterns that existed in dimensions beyond normal space-time began building around the massive ship, creating visual distortions that made nearby stars appear, to bend and twist. Then something unprecedented happened. The approaching devourers, entities that had never shown fear or hesitation in any previous encounter, began to slow down. Their formations, which had always been perfectly coordinated, became loose and uncertain. For the first time since they had appeared in the galaxy, the unstoppable force seemed confused. "Impossible," breathed Elder Vess from her ethereal form. "Nothing has ever made them hesitate. Nothing has ever made them afraid." Admiral Chen's voice cut through the alien communications with cold precision. "All vessels, prepare to witness why humans are classified as an apex predator species. Record everything for your military archives." The energy building around the human fleet reached a crescendo that made reality itself seem to protest. Then, with a sound that was felt rather than heard, the humans opened fire. What emerged from their weapons wasn't energy or matter in any conventional sense. It was pure negation beams of unreality that unmade whatever they touched at a fundamental level. Where the beam struck the devourers, the entities simply ceased to exist, leaving behind regions of space that looked normal but registered as absolute voids on every sensor. The devourers, which had consumed entire fleets without taking damage, began to scream. The sound was transmitted across multiple dimensions simultaneously. A keening wail of something that had never experienced pain, suddenly confronted with its own mortality. But the humans weren't finished. Secondary weapon systems activated, creating cascading effects that rippled through space-time itself. The remaining devourers found themselves trapped in bubbles of altered physics, unable to use their dimension-shifting abilities to escape. Dr. Reyes, the chief scientist aboard the Prometheus, monitored the engagement from her position at the reality manipulation controls. The weapons humanity had developed were based on discoveries made in the outer reaches of their solar system, where space itself behaved differently. They had learned to weaponize the fundamental forces that held reality together. "Temporal displacement fields are stable," she reported to Admiral Chen. "The entities are locked in accelerated time loops. They're experiencing their own destruction, repeatedly across multiple probability states. Within 20 minutes, it was over. 7 entities that had consumed hundreds of worlds simply ceased to exist, erased from reality so completely that even their quantum signatures were gone. The human fleet began powering down their exotic weapons, their hulls flowing back into more conventional configurations. The alien fleet sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had witnessed. Weapons that could unmake matter at a subatomic level, ships that could manipulate space-time like clay, Technology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions rather than absolute rules. How? General Thane finally managed to ask. How is any of this possible? Admiral Chen reappeared on the communication screens, looking tired but satisfied. General, humans have been preparing for galactically vowel threats for 70 years. We've built our technology around one simple principle. If something can kill us, we need to be able to kill it first, faster, and more completely than it can kill us. Kylux found his voice at last. Admiral, your weapons. They're beyond anything we imagined possible. How long have you possessed this technology? Long enough, Chen replied. The question now is what happens next. The Devourer threat is eliminated, but as per our agreement, the systems we've cleansed now fall under human territorial control. That's 12 star systems, including 3 with habitable worlds. The reality of their bargain began to sink in. The humans hadn't just defeated the Devourers, they had established themselves as the galaxy's dominant military power in a single engagement. The carefully maintained balance between species had been shattered in 20 minutes of combat. There are still more Devourer groups, Elderves pointed out. Intelligence suggests at least 6 more incursions in different sectors. Chen nodded. We'll handle them. But each cleansing operation will require the same terms territorial rights to any systems we clear. By the time we're finished, humanity will control approximately 40% of former Devourer contested space. The implications were staggering. Humans would go from being a minor species on the galactic periphery to controlling some of the most strategically important systems in known space. They would have resources, territory, and military capabilities that rivaled the combined strength of the established galactic powers. What assurances do we have that humanity won't become a threat to the rest of us? General Thane asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Admiral Chen's smile was polite but predatory. General, we're already a threat. The difference is that we're a threat that keeps its word. We agreed to eliminate the Devourer problem, and we will. We agreed to your terms of payment, and we'll honor them. What you do with that knowledge is up to you. As the human fleet prepared to jump to the next crisis zone, Dr. Nexon transmitted a final question. Admiral, may I ask why your species developed such devastating weapons? What were you preparing to fight? Chen paused before answering, and for a moment her professional facade slipped to reveal something deeper, an understanding of threats that the galaxy was only beginning to comprehend. Doctor, she said quietly, the Devourers aren't the worst thing the universe can throw at us. We've seen what lurks in the spaces between galaxies. We know what's coming from the void beyond the known stars. The Devourers were just the opening act. With that ominous statement, the human fleet vanished as suddenly as it had appeared, leaving the alien armada alone with the realization that they had just witnessed the emergence of a new galactic superpower. The age of balance was over. The age of human dominance had begun, and somewhere in the vast emptiness between galaxies, ancient things that had been sleeping for eons began to stir, drawn by the use of weapons that could tear holes in reality itself. The humans had won this battle, but they had also announced their presence to threats that made the Devourers look like a minor inconvenience. The galaxy would never be the same.